What's going on, everyone? My name is Nicholas Merton here at DataDash, and today is September 4th of 2018. Well, folks, I hope you are having a wonderful start to the day wherever you are on the planet. Today, we've got some key things to discuss here on the Daily Update. First and foremost, as always, we're going to be spending a decent amount of time taking a look at market valuations as well as doing some technical analysis on the market leaders. But outside of this, we have some key things to discuss in regards to the brewing emerging market crisis. A variety of currency crises, impending recessions, as well as geopolitical issues are strangling these emerging markets, and it is providing the perfect storm in my mind for cryptocurrency. So I want to provide you a big picture update on what's going on in these countries that we've discussed, as well as some new ones, and talk about what I believe is going to possibly happen for cryptocurrencies. But outside of this, let's go ahead and start off with evaluating market valuations. So really over the past 24 to 48 hours, markets have slowly crept up. We've had Bitcoin holding well above $7,000, signaling confidence in price and setting up for what could possibly be a breakout in price. However, we haven't seen anything too significant, but this has brought a decent amount of confidence into altcoins. As we can see, we started to see some players in the double-digit area, as well as a general green tone across the market with a few players in the red. So valuations are slowly but surely creeping up. Nothing too serious, no altcoin bull run or anything like that, but we definitely have been able to maintain off the lows that we've had back here since in August 14th. Now, it is key to talk about volume here. We have not seen a significant rise in volume. If we take it to the all-time chart, there is no significant increase, but it is definitely setting on the cusp where we've been able to hold well above $10 billion in volume and might be looking for a higher sense of volume if we can, again, get not only higher prices in cryptocurrencies, but also a catalyst driving markets. And we'll talk about emerging markets later on and how I believe that'll play a decent role. Going on here to take a look at market dominance here, we have been unchanged since August 14th. No serious increase, and in fact, it's looking like we might have a chance to start seeing Bitcoin dominance deplete. And as you all know, we tend to see Bitcoin dominance deplete when markets are moving higher, when other coins or altcoins in general get a little bit more risk taking going on. People start paying a higher premium for them, and because of that, we could potentially see not only Bitcoin increase, but also altcoins. But it's really going to, again, matter when we take a look at the TA side of things. I'm kind of still in a neutral zone at the moment in regards to my tone on the markets. But other coins right now are quite cheap, not to mention some of the market leaders have lost steady dominance. Ethereum and Ripple have not been able to maintain the continued growth. So we might have to look for other players in the market to suck in some of that market dominance and gain valuation if we continue to see higher prices. So going on here, I want to spend some time to really talk about my current stance on Bitcoin. As much as we are definitely looking a little bit more positive over the past few days and weeks, I'm still remaining relatively neutral on markets, guys. I know a lot of people think some people think I'm a perma bull. Many people look out there and see people who've taken more of a bearish trend and they think they're perma bears. Guys, I'm still relatively neutral at this point, and I've been that way for a while. There's a lot of good positive catalysts that we can see in the market at the moment that signal that we might be getting what I've been talking about, which is a potential uptick to $10,000 in the short term, around $10,000 to $12,000 in the short term. But again, I don't want to rush to conclusions here. I want to go ahead and give you guys a good picture as to what I'm watching and a summary as well as to kind of the catalysts that are going to make me either bullish or bearish at the current moment. So let's go ahead and talk about the good, and then we'll take a look at the bad. First off, as always, we have still been holding well above $6,000. I'm still remaining confident in this. Again, many people were calling for $4,000 or $5,000 last week. We didn't get it. And along with that as well, again, it's still in the picture, but at the moment, we're holding that level. And so long as we hold it, we're not going to, again, get too fearful on it. It's a good positive sign that we've held 6,000, which is, again, a 70% reduction from the highs. Going on here, we can see as well that we are well above the 50 and 100 day. Not only that, we actually came down to test it over a 3-day period and held steadily on the 100 day and 50 day. So this is good. It looks like Bitcoin could potentially come back up and test towards some big resistance indicators that we're going to talk about in just a moment. But I also want to talk as well about how I've readjusted my line of resistance. Now, beforehand, I actually had one that would be more favorable to Bitcoin's price right now. Many people would say that Bitcoin has broken past the line of resistance here. Again, TA is subjective, guys. It's important to understand that. I don't sit here confidently saying TA is the godsend. That's why I don't use a lot of it, because I keep it very simple. You really just have to be a little bit subjective in regards to patterns, and when you find better ones, switch to them and call yourself out on it. So for example, this used to be my line of resistance here, and even though Bitcoin has creeped up above it here, I'll be fair, I really think So the line of resistance that we should be watching is this one right here, which goes back here historically. And again, I've talked about support and resistance as well. Previous support becomes new resistance, and previous resistance becomes new support. And we're seeing that right here. We're seeing how back here price was holding on a nice steady declining line and actually turned towards resistance when we broke through it. As you can see, price got rejected each time under this line after we broke it. So I think that's what's going on here. This is really going to be the test as to whether or not we can break up higher. And at the moment, I'm also watching for the 200-day here. So these are really the two things that are holding me back from getting excessively optimistic just yet. I want to see a breach above 8,000, and I think if we can get that, we've got a pretty set confirmed rally towards around 10K. There's no guarantees. It's not financial advice, guys. You got to decide that for yourself, but that's generally what I'm seeing at the moment. But there's two things as well that I would say to keep watching. For the optimistic side, if we take a look here at weekly volume, and I recommend you take a look at Coinbase because it measures, it's a good measure of retail volume. We can see that we have not made new lows since back on July 9th, or back during this week, back in July. In regards to volume, we've been able to maintain higher levels. Now, we're not continuously growing here, to be fair, but we haven't made a new bottom in retail volume. This is a new week here, obviously, so we'll have to see if the early part of September can maintain the same kind of volume that we've been processing over the past few weeks. But right now, seems like volume has bottomed out. It means that the lack of interest has kind of gone away. We're actually starting to possibly see a little bit of a rebound in regards to traders and investors coming back in at these prices. So on the optimistic side, I want to see that maintained. We need to see more liquidity come into the market. But outside of that, I'd also say as well, I want to point something out interesting that I think a lot of people still missed, and that was the recent rebound and shorts on Bitcoin. We had this supposed short squeeze. It really wasn't much. I wouldn't say so much of a short squeeze. I think it was a lot of people exiting positions, but we did have some people get liquidated as prices slowly came back up to the upside. And we had a massive drop like we saw in the past. Again, historically repeating itself. We talked about it, guys. It tends to be that when we get around the 35 to 40,000 contract size on Bitfinex in regards to shorts, we tend to see a correction. It's an over-exuberant nature, or I guess an over-fearful nature of the bears. And we see that historically. Again, I would say not to bet against history in regards to this, but we have seen it come back very quickly above 30,000. Now, many people believe that this was a small set of investors or one or select few investors that built a massive trade portion on the short side for Bitcoin on Bitfinex. We don't know who it is, but they set up a lot of their positions around the $72 to $7,300 range, meaning that if they're trading on high leverage, they could get liquidated quite easily if we get a big rebound. But again, who knows? I don't know. I'm not going to bet on a huge short squeeze or anything like that. Just letting you all know, someone or a very select group of people set a massive short position in a matter of a few hours here on Bitcoin. I'll go ahead and shrink the chart here so you can see in just an hour how much it rose up to the upside. But it doesn't seem like it's signaling much higher. So it doesn't seem like a bigger wave of shorts coming in as we've seen in the past, a longer term uptrend. It seems like something more in the short term. Again, something to weigh in regards to the bears case. Means someone's placing a very big bet. So the two things that I'm really going to be watching here, guys, as always, is not only the line of resistance and the 200-day. Short, sweet, and to the point summary, guys. I'm neutral at this point. If we see Bitcoin fall below 6,000, I'm bearish. If we see Bitcoin get above this line of resistance, as well as the 200-day, I'm going to be bullish on markets, at least in the short term, towards around 10 to 12,000. We'll have to see, we'll have to do a little bit more TA and figure out if there's going to be any key levels of resistance and factor in things like the Fibonacci retracements. But at the moment, I'm not going to overcomplicate it. These are the two things that I'm looking for at the moment. So let's see what happens over the next few days. Going on here, I'm going to spend some time to talk about the market leaders. Many people have been asking me about Ethereum. Ethereum is really treading on some thin ice, guys. There has not only been growing fears around Ethereum as it has not been able to maintain with Bitcoin, but you can see on this chart here that it is in a massive technical formation over the past year and a half here. If we cannot maintain this pattern right now, if we can't get a rebound and beat out momentum comparative to Bitcoin, Ethereum could be set on a much larger track for sell-off. Now, what I mean by this is that I don't think the USD valuation is going to deplete that much. It might still continue, but if Ethereum does not hold this pattern, the last level of support is down here around 2,500,000 Satoshis, meaning that it probably would lead towards Bitcoin leading towards higher levels and Ethereum not being able to keep up. So its USD would retain its USD valuation, its US dollar valuation, but it would not be able to keep up with the momentum and growth of Bitcoin. I think that's very plausible. If it doesn't hold this technical pattern, it shows that investors are not getting as savvy around Ethereum right now, or that there might be way too much in regards to a kind of a glut in supply on the open market with projects selling. Now, again, they're selling OTC, but again, might be an oversupply after all the raise and all these ICOs over the past few months. Again, we'll have to see if that's the case. But right now, I'm keeping an eye to see if this is going to hold on 4 million Satoshis at the moment. It looks like there's some serious sellers coming in, so we got to hope that buyers are going to continue to come in at these lower levels. Going on, talk about Ripple. I was considering doing a trade on Ripple the other day, but backed out on it. I think the big thing here we have to see is a test on the double bottom here. If we've gone this low on the gains that we've seen in Ripple, we're probably going to come back down and test towards the low around 42,000 Satoshis. Again, not getting too eager on this one. We could even test towards lower levels back to what we saw back in December. Again, remaining patient on Ripple. The big thing here, guys, with these big players, again, I want to emphasize it so much, especially these momentum players, is that it is a very short period that you benefit holding Ripple. We can see it's right here. And in the past, when we had the rally back in the early part of 2017, the vast majority of holding Ripple is being outpaced by Bitcoin. Okay, that's the key thing to take away from this. So still keeping cautious on it. It's not oversold on the RSI. I'm going to wait until then. I'm going to wait until some indicators make me feel more confident on Ripple. But again, getting much more towards the favorable range. Going on here, let's go ahead and take a look at Bitcoin Cash. Bitcoin Cash got a nice bump up over the past few days. I think mostly having to do with not only some scrappers coming in at the bottom. Prices have been quite to the downside. I wouldn't say oversold, but quite to the downside over the past few months. But along with that as well, they recently had the transaction per second test on the Bitcoin Cash network, which proved a very high throughput on transactions. Again, maybe we can do an evaluation on that, talk about the pros and cons, what it showed, and also just a general update on Bitcoin Cash if you guys are interested in that. Doesn't seem like you guys are, but let me know in the comments if that interests you. However, what I see is a general rejection near the 50-day here, a rollover on a lot of these gains. I really don't see this holding very well. Personally, it would have had to have gotten above the 50-day and hold. We would have wanted to see this kind of rollover on top of the moving average and maintain the price levels above that moving average. That's what I wanted to see, and because of that, I think this is probably not going to hold too well. We need to see this double bottom down at these lows, especially with the Bitmain concerns in regards to their massive stake in Bitcoin Cash. So going on here, let's go ahead and take a look at EOS. EOS right now coming up, testing above the 50-day. That's the key indicator here, guys. Again, people say that you have to use really complex indicators. The moving averages are what is holding this back at the moment. It's very, very clear here. So we'll have to see if we can get a breakout today. It looks like it might have a chance to break out, but I have not seen a breakout, and because of that, I'm going to wait until it gets above the 50-day, comes back and makes that support. We can see it's acting as resistance. It'll most likely come back down and test it for support. So going to be watching that with EOS. Let's go ahead and take a look at Litecoin. Litecoin, as always, again, I've been watching around the 800,000 to 800,000 Satoshi to 1 million Satoshi range, and it looks like Litecoin might be expecting a little bit of a rebound at these levels. We've actually tested down towards this range quite nicely. The USD valuation, as we've taken a look at, has held on a previous level really pretty much before the crazy rally in December. So this is really good to see. We solidified the mass majority of steady uptrend gains back in 2017 and really just cut out a lot of the parabolic craziness. And now it's starting to look like we might be able to start an uptrend in Litecoin and a lot of these other altcoins. It's a matter of getting above the 50-day, both on its USD as well as its Bitcoin comparative. We're very close to these, and then we have a chance to possibly test up towards the 100-day and the 200-day. I think we're going to go back much more towards a steady uptrend here, guys, rather than a crazy, jolt rally like we saw in December. We don't have the liquidity, we don't have the excitement for that, but we could see a nice steady uptrend, much like we saw at the beginning stages of 2017, setting up for a more longer-term uptrend. That would be really nice and healthy to see. So hope to continue seeing that in the market. Let's go ahead and rush through some of these protocols here, guys. Cardano looking good at these levels. I've been seeing a lot of these altcoins rebound, get a good double-digit bounce off their lows, and we just haven't seen that yet with Cardano, but it's holding on that previous resistance as we talked about months ago. So it's good to see that it's holding here. Let's see if we can get a bounce off of here again. So long as it holds above 1,400 Satoshis, I'd feel comfortable on this one, getting a position. But again, it's just my opinion. You got to do your own research, guys. You got to decide for yourself. But this is the range where I'm getting really confident on Cardano. Again, one of the cheaper altcoins at the moment, in regards to the fact that it hasn't had any kind of steady rebound. We started to see with a lot of other players, markets are starting to rebound as we just took a look at some of these other altcoins that aren't Ethereum and aren't Ripple. Anyways. Going on to NEO here. NEO forming a very similar pattern to Litecoin, starting to rebound and test towards that 50-day. I'm going to go ahead and bring this up on Bittrex, guys. There's a very simple pattern going on. It's an ascending triangle. And we have currently, as of now, broken out of the ascending triangle. So it's a matter now of whether or not we're going to get past the 50-day. Again, I want to see this get above the 50-day, rest on top, and even rest maybe on top of the triangle as the 50-day comes down, and then break out towards higher levels. Very simple. Just short, sweet, and to the point, keeping it very patient in regards to making any serious moves. Now let's go ahead and take a look at some of the big peer-to-peer digital currencies. XMR BTC, loving the momentum with Monero. I think personally you got to see this come back down and do exactly what it did on the 50-day, come down, weigh support on the 100-day, and then you could easily see this come up to the 200-day, which is declining, but could still provide a nice trade for one of the large caps. Going on to Dash as well. We're seeing this again with all the players. Resistance at the 50-day, breakout above it, making it support, and I think Dash is going to continue climbing here, at least up to test towards the 100-day. I think we're going to get above it, maintain support. Same story. It's a matter of figuring out which ones have been more dramatically oversold in this market. The peer-to-peer digital currencies are signaling confidence. Nano BTC. I've been talking a lot about Nano, guys. Nano has had a fantastic rally. Again, as I told you, I closed a decent amount of positions around the lower 4,000 Satoshi range. The fact of the matter is, at the moment, I still think this needs to come down and either retest the 100-day or might need to come down towards 3,000 Satoshis. It would be really, really good to get it come down to 3,000 Satoshis. And the reason I say that is because it's where we started to see a lot of the parabolic price action come in on this rally, and it would land right on top of the level where we had not only we have the 50-day moving average coming up soon, but also the ascending triangle. So again, haven't seen a rebound in volume, so it doesn't make me confident that we're going to see a continued rally in price just yet. We need to see this come down and have a little bit of a correction, I think, before we see that. So remaining patient, remaining vigilant, definitely excited about the peer-to-peer digital currency plays, but altcoins in general are definitely exciting me at these levels and prices. So let's go ahead and talk about the emerging market crisis. Again, we've been talking about this a lot on the channel, guys. I don't want to beat a dead horse in regards to repeating things. I just want to give you all a really good update. As you all know, I believe that in a variety of these economies, in countries like Venezuela, in countries like Argentina, in countries, for example, such as Iran as well, that are going through serious currency crises, there's a lot of opportunity. I've also talked about how a lot of these countries, when they have a broken currency, whether they do or not, that they're on the cusp of pending recessions, and they're looking for a stable measure of valuation and transfer valuation between different parties. Not to mention as well, there's also some countries brewing from geopolitical issues, and sometimes, again, some countries have all of these combined, and it leads towards a very messy situation that can really only be fixed by stable reserve currencies that provide freedom, that provide, a sense of being able to retain your value. And I want to go ahead and spend some time again. I'd love to talk more about this in the future and really go really in depth. And again, keep you all up to date. If this interests you guys, let me know in the comments. If it doesn't, just let me know kindly down below, guys. I'd love to hear from you. But I think this is a really, really important thing for those of you out there like myself who, might be excited about the ETF. Might be excited about Bakkt and all these institutions getting involved in crypto. I'm excited about adoption. And this is really, really getting me excited, not only as, on a personal level with crypto, but also in a market perspective as well. Adoption leads towards larger market growth. And with more of an audience coming into this market, there's more people speculating and people getting involved in crypto, which could bring up prices as well for those of you who are just here for a market perspective. So let's go ahead and talk about this. I want to spend some time to talk about Venezuela. It's obviously in the headlines, guys, but I think people are looking at Venezuela in the wrong reasons, for the wrong reasons, and then also aren't realizing the valuation of actually understanding what's going on here and the value proposition for cryptocurrencies in Venezuela. So this is something that I think is very important to talk about right off the bat. Many people have talked about how crypto will not see growth in these emerging markets because they can simply switch to other fiat currencies. Now, this is true in some regards. There are some economies where people will be like, no, I can swap to the dollar and, simply go ahead and retain a decent amount of their valuation as their currency deflates into nothing. But it is very, very important to keep in mind that in many countries, such as Venezuela, that is not an option. We can see here in this quote here from the Accounting Standards Board that the general population prefers to keep its wealth in non-monetary assets, so generally commodities in that case, or in a relatively stable foreign currency, so something like the dollar or the euro. However, due to capital controls that have been in place since 2003, Venezuelans were restricted in their ability to obtain US dollars or any other foreign currencies. So they've been feeling this pain for the past few years as Venezuela's dollar has inflated to practically nothing. It's become worthless comparative to toilet paper. So because of this, again, sometimes due to capital controls and regulations and the military having a gun to your head, you cannot switch to US dollars. But there is an alternative. There is something that is off the grid that doesn't have a name tied to your bank, like a bank account. It's not tied to your identity all the time. And in fact, can also in some cases provide privacy or a way to go off the grid. And that is cryptocurrencies. And again, I want to emphasize, guys, that no one in this world understands the value of crypto and actually using crypto than someone who's experiencing hyperinflation. And we can see here, for example, that this has been a drastic issue in Venezuela. Since 2013, the inflation of the currency, the Venezuelan bolivar, has been dramatic. It is over 5 percentage digit point growth here, where we've seen over almost 14,000% growth in the currency supply. That is massive devaluation, and it's not showing any sign of stopping. Whether they create more of it or people just simply lose a value proposition for the currency because it's just been so utterly destroyed by the monetary policy of the Venezuelan government. I want to go ahead here to talk about, though, as we all know, hyperinflation is not good, devaluation of currency is not good, but this has also led towards a very, very big growth in cryptocurrencies. And it's a story to tell here. In November of 2013, around the time that Venezuela had supposedly massaged the inflation rate to just 43%, to us that would be absolute pandemonium in the United States. When Venezuelan inflation for the bolivar was hitting 43%, there was only 2 Bitcoin being traded comparative to the Venezuelan bolivar on local Bitcoins. So many of you know local Bitcoins is an exchange where you meet up peer-to-peer, and it's off traditional exchange. You meet on this website and you meet hand-to-hand and trade cryptocurrency for fiat currency or any other type of commodity or asset. Well, there has been a massive amount of growth. Back in these days, in November of 2013, as you all know, this was the first spike of Bitcoin's price up towards $1,000. But with only 2 Bitcoin being traded, this was still a relatively small speculative market. Bitcoin wasn't seen as an option. Well, as we go down here, there has been a huge change. It pales in comparison to the number of Bitcoin traded over the entire year at 2,059. This is the current amount for 2018, which is 983% bigger than 2014's total of 190, which at the time had around a valuation of $1.2 million. So, if we take this into account here, we're seeing more Bitcoin being traded. They have a wonderful chart here. I really give hats off to Cointelegraph. I think journalists need to do more serious written articles like this that are investigative pieces into the bigger trends of things. You can see that the Bitcoin being traded is close to the highs here in late to mid 2016. Now, if we account for dollar valuation, this is actually more liquidity being traded in crypto markets. We've actually, if we were to take this in a dollar chart, we would see a massive growth here for volume in Bitcoin. However, in regards to Bitcoin volume, we're still trading about the same amount on local Bitcoins that we saw back here in the peak in 2016, so which is really good. And we might see hopefully that the amount of Bitcoin also continues to grow as we've seen here over the past few weeks and months going into 2018. So even as crypto markets have died, the amount of Bitcoin being traded has continued rising as well. And this makes sense, guys. We've seen an increase in poverty in this country. We've seen the national average of poverty climb from 48% to 87% within a matter of just 3 years. And that, again, is not going to decline until you have sound currency. So it's really upsetting. It really it's got to pull your heartstrings in one way or another, guys. These are real people. There's millions of people who are being stripped of their wealth that they worked for and have been trying to find a way to make it in a world where they don't have a sound way of producing, again, transferring value to one another. This goes for consumers and businesses. So I want to spend some time to talk about not just speculating or storing your value in crypto, but actually using crypto. And I got to give hats off, guys. I was very late to the ballpark on talking about Dash. I knew about Dash for a very long time. And I really got to give hats off to Dash for actually going about taking upon this opportunity to get real crypto adoption. Dash has been the front runner out of all cryptocurrencies. I can only think of a few like Nano, for example, that have done the same or something similar, where they are actually getting communities together and engaging in these countries to actually get people using cryptocurrencies. They're giving away free cryptocurrency. They're giving paper wallets. They're doing seminars and group sessions. And they're also reaching out towards retailers. And I can tell you guys, from what I can see, where you can actually, you don't have to believe me, you can go look up the maps online, the e-commerce maps that accept Dash and cryptocurrencies. They love it. They absolutely see the value in it, and they're using it. They're accepting it for goods and services. This is a quote exactly from the Dash Core CEO. This is the Dash Core CEO himself, Ryan Taylor. And listen to what he said. We found that regions of high inflation rates and industries in which cash handling or credit card chargeback rates are high, pretty much a big issue that we're even dealing with in the United States in regards to credit card fees, have been most excited to adopt the technology. For us, we focus on those segments in which cryptocurrency can offer the most benefit, and that's one of the reasons growth in acceptance is so high. So when we talk about this, guys, again, I can't stress it enough. If you want to market to people who are actually going to use crypto, that are going to bring real financial and fundamental value to cryptocurrencies, look no further than Venezuela. You've got millions of people who could potentially be using cryptocurrency. And quite frankly, they don't give a damn about their government. They're ready to step around it. If they have the opportunity, or on the mass scale, like a virus, this new technology can spread, they're going to use it. So it's really, really exciting. I again, as someone who for years, before cryptocurrencies, was looking for an alternative to traditional money, this excites me. This really does. I've never been so excited about something. It's why I talk about it so much. And so I'm sorry if I bore you guys with this sometimes, but I think it's very important. And for example, this is something that they're doing. They have these, actually this community group in Venezuela. It's one of the first of its kind, where they've been actually handing out paper wallets of $10 a Dash and showing people how to set up mobile wallets on their phones and how to do business. And again, the whole general tone is very, very positive. So very exciting to see, specifically in Venezuela, adoption of cryptocurrencies. And again, I'd love to dive more deep into it. In fact, I'd love to travel to Venezuela. I've actually considered doing that. If you guys would love to see some on-the-ground coverage, I would actually be totally down. We're paying for a ticket myself and going to see this kind of stuff. But anyways, enough rambling on that. Let's go ahead and talk about some of the other emerging markets here. Turkey, for example, has continued reaching towards all-time lows against the dollar here. This has been due to the fact, or at least we're testing towards those lows in the dollar, and this is due to the fact that, again, fears have continued to grow in regards to the currency. However, there are talks that the monetary policy for the Turkish lira is going to be taking towards a turn of higher interest rates. This has been something that people have been begging for on the world stage. The question here is not so much whether or not interest rates are good or bad. We'll have to see what the market determines on that, or if there's any fundamental flaws in doing a rise in interest rates or not. Fact of the matter is it's a question of whether or not we're going to get it. Erdogan, who is the president of Turkey, has been quite hesitant to do this, and it would be interesting to see him flip on a dime, seeing as he's been able to push it so far. And it seems like he's very much against kind of the outer world of the IMF and a lot of the financial institutions that have been pressing on him on the geopolitical stage to push that interest rate higher. And we can see, because of really what many people claim is the lack of interest rate rising, that we've seen a very big issue. And this is what we've seen in many other countries when currencies devalue. And that is the difference in change in regards to the consumer price index and the producer price index, where basically the issue right now is that we've seen a higher soar in the producer price index of 32.1% comparative to a lower rate, nearly double that, of the consumer price index, meaning that right now producers are taking on the cost. The producers of goods and services are taking on the bulk of the cost of this hyperinflation or devaluation of the currency. So that's going to carry on towards prices soon for consumers. And when that comes, it is going to be very difficult for consumers. Prices are going to go up at rapid paces. They already have been at the moment, but they're going to go up at a much higher level. And when that happens, recessions come around the corner because people don't have a retained store value and prices keep getting bigger. They can't buy the goods and services that they want. Businesses do less business. status quo. Again, this is what happens when you don't have a stable currency, and this is going to lead both citizens and also those on the producer side to also want to use something that's stable. Cryptocurrencies will look like a decent option when you have currency restrictions or capital controls, for more of a technical term, on traditional currencies, and you have the only thing you can turn to is cryptocurrencies. So again, it would be very interesting to see if Erdogan keeps pushing this, and maybe he wants to get something that's separate outside of the dollar and actually maybe start supporting cryptocurrency legislation. We don't know about that. I'm not sure. But it would definitely be interesting. No matter if there's legislation or not, there will be adoption of cryptocurrencies if this continues up. Argentina, this has been another one as well. The Argentina president has obviously kicked in to the status quo and kissed up to the IMF. And with doing so, he has used the IMF bailout that he got, one of the largest IMF bailouts in history, to try to prop up his currency. And the Argentina currency has continued to decline. So, seeing as it has not worked out well, we have continued to see it decline to the dollar in practically all stable world reserve currencies. It has gotten to a point where he has promised to the IMF, in order to get the next tranche of the bailout, the next segment of the bailout, that he will be actually using it to try to help stimulate the economy. So here's a good summary that Zero Hedge put out here. Here's the good news, supposedly, that Macri has promised to dramatically shrink the size of government, eliminating several ministries entirely. Now, on a physical side of this, yes, this is good. But this goes again to show what happens when the IMF steps in. It's what's known as structural readjustments, in a sense, where basically the people who get squeezed in this case is not the banks who would be receiving interest payments on money that they created out of thin air. No. Banks get their money back. What they're actually going to be getting is cuts on the average citizens. They're going to be cutting out social programs. They're going to be cutting out, basic everyday things, healthcare, education. Now, in some cases, you got to make cutbacks if you borrow money that you don't have. But again, if you understand how the international banking system works, you'll see that this is the same repeated system. And it's rather paying money to people who created it out of thin air on interest payments rather than paying for things that are actual goods and services for your citizens. The bad news here that really kind of hits is that they're going to raise taxes on the one positive economic attribute that Argentina has, and that's its exports. So again, very big dent in the economy. Again, if you're going to raise taxes like this, it's going to shut down economic growth. It's going to shut down GDP. Not good news. Going on to the ugly news. Amid the hyperinflation regime shift that is occurring, Macri is resorting to price controls on some essential foods. So he's trying to establish price controls. It's never worked, okay? If anything, it has been a patch in the short term and then leads towards bigger issues because, again, you cannot tamper with supply and demand. Fact. Like, that is just simply a law of economics here. You can't do that. So in regards to this, guys, we have seen at this point that the currency crisis is not getting any better for a lot of these countries. And we also have countries like South Africa that are dealing with geopolitical issues and have actually dipped into a recession. Now, this has been not only due to stagnant growth, but also has been due to a lot of the issues in regards to land expropriation. There's been a lot of issues with the farmers in South Africa. Again, it's a topic for another time. But there's a lot of issues happening in a variety of different markets across the world. We're stepping into potential recessions, as we've seen here in South Africa, where the past 2 quarters have been negative growth in markets. And when you have 2 negative quarters of growth in any given economy, you are defined as being in a recession. Now, not too big of a drop. We can see here, if we take a look at the drop here, it's only 0.7%, but we're not seeing growth. And we've already been on a track of declining growth over time since the early 2000s. So when we factor in all of this, guys, when we see that, for example, these currencies are losing valuation, not only that, they're testing towards their lows or making new highs. When we see what's going on in Argentina, in Turkey, and what we see going on exactly, if we go ahead here and pull up, I'll have to switch the currency symbols. They don't even have it on here. The Venezuelan currency comparative to the dollar, we can see that there is a serious issue going on in many countries across the world. It is the perfect storm, in my opinion. So I recommend you keep looking into it, keep up to date with it, look for some of the signs of what these governments are doing in response. Some of them are rebelling against the traditional financial system. Some of them are just plain out stupid and don't know how to manage monetary policy, and some have been downright corrupt. And it's time that the people take back control of their money. It's time that we take back control of stable, sound currency and find a way to retain not only our value, but be able to do business with one another free of any government intervention. So that's my rant for today, guys. That's my little shtick on emerging markets. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoyed everything we talked about in the daily update. And I'd like to hear from you guys what you all think about this. Leave a comment down below and get a discussion going if you got the time. But until the next video, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Stay tuned.